Hey, good afternoon, producer Susan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Jersey
Okay.
Joe. How are you?
Good, thank you. I was out in your neck of the woods yesterday. Went out to the annual Great American Outdoor Show in Harrisburg.
Did
Uh,
you see anything good?
it's a massive show. It's like 250,000 square feet. It's like five Walmarts put together. They had dogs, retrieving stuff. They had a big pool set up with dogs retrieving stuff in the
Sock
water,
diving.
and probably the biggest gun show in the Northeast. And it was you could spend a day there easily. But
Hmm.
anyway, a great time. But anyway, and it was good weather in Pennsylvania, so all right.
Unlike tomorrow.
Unlike tomorrow, you can have snow.
No, actually ice. We're getting an inch of ice.
It's wow. Okay. Put a piece of if you park outside, put a big piece of plastic over your car, then pull or tarp and pull it off. All right. Hey, we got so much to talk about today. Yeah, today's February the 4th.
Oh yeah, the
Uh,
groundhog saw a shadow.
yeah, and by the way, the PETA wants the people who run the Puxatawny Phil, they want to replace Puxatawny Phil with a weather reveal cake. All right.
He's a local icon.
I know he's an icon. Anyway, I don't think people would get excited if they cut open a cake to see
No.
what color was inside the cake. I don't think it would be anywhere near as people would be anywhere near as interested. Anyway, but they think it's cruel and unusual to have to wake the groundhog up before he's ready to wake up. All right. Hey, we got so much to talk about. We're not going to do a quote of the week this week, but it's the Jersey Joe show, news and perspective, the situation with Jersey Joe, news and perspective you won't hear on TV. And I got a bunch of stuff you haven't heard on TV and a bunch of perspective on stuff you did hear, but only heard one thing. So we're going to skip the quote of the week. We're going to go right to our stupidest thing I've heard all week. And this week I've got three different clips by Justin Awad. He's the guy that, has asked people on the street these simple questions that they can't answer. And I've got about three different clips of him. And the reason I'm playing, these are the people who vote and decide who our next president's going to be. So I've got three of those we're going to play. We're going to follow up that stupid clip with even more stupidity. The Elon Musk has a team of six MIT grads going through all of our spending, and I'm going to
Mhm.
give you a recap of some of the stupid spending that they've been finding. Um, and we're also following that. We're going to tell you how stupidly payments by the U.S. Treasury have been being handled for the past several days. Because ultimately, every check that gets paid, no matter which department, which agency authorized a check, it gets paid by a U.S. Treasury check. And there's people there that's supposed to be, checking these, the validity of these payments. We're going to tell you why they haven't been checking. We'll tell you about how the one of the country's largest solar power plants is going to go out of business and why that failure will cost U.S. taxpayers more than $2 billion. You may be aware of it, maybe not. We'll tell you where it is and why the U.S. taxpayers are on the hook for $2 billion. We'll tell you how many taxpayer dollars were donated to the Bernie Sanders presidential campaign in 2020 and ask why are government agencies donating money to political campaigns? Did you know that was happening?
No, I didn't. He
Yeah.
didn't run in. He ran in 2016, right? He didn't run in 2020, right?
Well, maybe it was 2016. Yeah, it was. I apologize. You're right. It was 2016. But yeah, there were several government entities that donated money to his political campaign. Those are taxpayer dollars, and we're going to ask why. We have a satirical clip of a young boy in a spelling bee contest asking the judges for the definition of a word that he's just been asked to spell, and it's hilarious, but also very telling. We'll tell you about a landmark deal that our new Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has negotiated with the governor of El Salvador. I think is a fantastic deal. And our taxpayer relief shot segment comes to us from Philadelphia, where a homeowner shoots and kills a man who had broken into his home at 11 o'clock at night. So that's what we got on the agenda today. So let's kick this off with Justin Awad. I've got three separate clips. There'll be a little pause between them. He's asking people on the street very simple questions that you would hope your sixth grader could answer. And here we go. Months make up 1 year. Is it 12? Yeah. Do you know what the first month is? September. I'm fucking stupid, no? September. Do you know how many continents there are? There's at least 30. I know that. At least 30. What's 3 times 3 times 3? Uh, it's 18.
Yes.
Now I'm going to play that again. So the first one, how many months in a year, and she gets that part right. And then he asks her, "What's the first month?" Now we all know what the first month is, right?
Yeah, I'm assuming she's old enough to celebrate New Year's Eve.
Yes, all these people are of voting age. And then, how many continents we have? Well, the answer is seven, not 30. And I'll play this one again. It's only 22 seconds. Here we go.
Do you know how many months make up 1 year?
Is it 12?
Yeah. Do you know what the first month is?
September. I'm fucking stupid, no? September.
Do you know how many continents there are? There's at least 30. I know that. At least 30. What's 3 times 3 times 3?
20.
It's 18.
Yes.
Now let's clip on. Remember, all those people are voting age. So we're going to go to the second clip now. And the first question, you may miss the first part. He's asking this young woman, what is the capital of New York? Which obviously is Albany. Here we go.
Marcus?
Upstate.
Yeah, so easy. What about the capital of the USA?
No.
What do you think it is?
Um, Texas.
And by the way, this young woman is in Times Square. He's asking her what's the capital of New York, and she's in New York and she thinks the capital of New York is upstate, and she doesn't know the capital of the United States is Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Yes. How many years are in 1 century?
And he's asking this question of three women, not one, three women. Can't tell you the how many years in a century. Here we go.
12.
You're
12.
Yes, very good. So how many is in 1 dozen?
12. Right?
So a century and a dozen are the same?
Yeah.
Yeah, but what was I thinking? If you were born 5 years ago, how old would you be today?
I'm not telling you my age.
Last question. What is this? If you were born 5 years ago, how old would you be today?
14. You think
Yes. You know what the capital of New York is?
upstate.
All right, so we'll kill this. So that was that one. So if you were born 5 years ago, you're obviously 5 years old, right? Here we go. And here's the last clip.
Is it exponent or multiplication?
Yes. Can you name 5 states?
Staten Island. They no, I don't even know.
Four more states. Any states?
New York.
Oh, you got 2?
Manhattan. I don't know.
3. 2 more. Yeah. 2 more.
Please. I don't know the state.
4. 1 more. State.
The Bronx.
5. Nice. If you owe somebody $11.50 and you give them a $20 bill, how much money do they give you back?
I think 10, because there's tax, I think.
Do you know what's the difference between Mexico and New Mexico? Are they the same thing?
Maybe, I don't know. I think
Yes. What's 3 times 3 times 3?
Is it an exponent or multiplication?
Yes.
Now, what's scary besides the fact that they vote, how sad is it that everybody you just heard has, at least in theory, graduated from a public high school?
Yeah.
How sad is that?
Yeah. I give him a couple, if you're not from now, I realize that he was doing this interview in Times Square, but they could have been visiting from the West Coast. Now
No,
we all did our geography, our state capitals in like what, 4th grade or 5th grade,
Right.
whatever. But I could see like maybe you don't remember the capital of New York, and maybe you're not good at math and don't know 3 times 3 times 3. But yeah, so many of these are just so basic that like you need to, yeah,
How many
I
years in a century? Can you name
100.
5 states?
5 states, I mean Staten Island and Manhattan. I mean,
They're
come
not
on.
sta- And again, all these people are high school graduates, and this is what our public education system is turning out. So do we need a federal Department of Education? Not if this is what our federal Department of Education is turning out. By the way, just a little editorial comment here. In Europe, tax the the educational tax dollars follow the student. So if a student wants to go to a private a privately operated school other than a state school, the tax dollars follow the student. And 60 Minutes did a segment where they have these students like in Denmark and Sweden and whatnot taking our SAT tests in English, and they are scoring head and shoulders above U.S. students. And competition breeds excellence, because if you're in one of these countries where private schools are free to compete with public schools, if the public schools can't compete, then they go out of business, and that's what's happening in Europe, where it's freedom of choice in terms of education, and our public education system is so broken. And Justin Awad must have 100 of these man on the street
Yeah.
interviews, and they're all so sad. When a person who's a high school graduate can't name even 5 states, or thinks that Staten Island is a state.
Yeah, Manhattan, Staten Island. Yeah, 5 states when there's 50 of them. I mean,
Yeah, come on. And to not know that the Brooklyn or the Bronx is not a state of the Union,
yeah.
it's just so sad that what we turn out. All right, let me go back to our next stupid thing. So, you've all heard about DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. This is headed up
Yep.
by Elon Musk. He's got 6 MIT grads that he's recruited to form a task force. And here's just some of the things that he's uncovered. Air Force is spending 600 million per year on sushi.
Why?
Uh, yeah. I guess they bring in lunch for some of these people in the Pentagon and whatnot, or in some of these Air Force bases. The IRS, remember now, half the IRS employees are working from home these days. You remember that, right? They're all working
Yeah.
remotely.
Yep.
IRS spent 2.5 million last year just on cinnamon roast K-cups, for your Keurig coffee maker.
Yeah.
And that's just the one flavor. Now, my thought is, if you want a cinnamon roast K-cup and you work for the IRS, bring it from home. Why are we spending $2.5 million a year to buy you cinnamon roast K-cups?
And I'm still stuck on the whole sushi thing, because if you're going to order a catered meal for a meeting, sushi is usually not the first choice for a catered meal for a large group of people.
Well, again, Air Force spent 600 million last year on sushi. Now, and then we have now. Are you familiar with the? Have you heard about the US AID? Do you know what that is?
No.
It's the U.S. Agency for International Development. They have a budget of $40 billion a year. And let me put this in perspective, by the way. HUD, Housing and Urban Development, has estimated that you could house and feed every homeless person in the United States, including tens of thousands of homeless U.S. veterans, for $20 billion a year. So USAID, U.S. Agency for International Development, has a budget of $40 billion a year.
And what are they doing with this $40 billion?
Well, I'm going to give you some examples. They spent 1.5 million to, quote, advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and business communities. Serbia. They
Why
spent
are we not focusing on the United States?
Right. Oh, the list goes on. $70,000 for production of a diversity, equity, and inclusion musical in Ireland. Why does Ireland need us to be paying for a
Again,
musical?
why are we not focusing on the United States?
$2.5 million to promote the use of electric vehicles and, I guess, charging stations in Vietnam.
Again, why are we not focusing on the United States?
$47,000 to fund a transgender opera in the country of Colombia.
And why are we not focusing on the United States?
$32,000 for the production of a transgender comic book in Peru, 2 million for sex changes and LGBT activism in the country of Guatemala,
Again, why are we not focusing on the United States?
6 million to fund tourism in the country of Egypt,
Shouldn't
and
we be focusing on our own tourism?
hundreds of thousands of dollars for nonprofits, agencies linked to designated terrorist organization, even after the Inspector General launched an investigation into that. Millions to the Eco Health Alliance, which was involved in research at the Wuhan lab, which is where the COVID virus originated.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands of meals that went to Al Qaeda affiliated fighters in Syria. Funding to print personalized contraceptive birth control devices in developing countries. So I guess if you're, I don't know whether they're, IUDs or whatever, or diaphragms, but they
have like your name on them?
Yes, they have your name on them.
Why?
All right. And last but not least, hundreds of millions of dollars to fund irrigation canals, farming equipment, and fertilizer to support poppy cultivation and heroin production in Afghanistan.
And yet California is suffering a water crisis.
Right. But think about this. What do you get? Why are poppies grown? What do you get from poppies?
Opioid.
Opioids. So let me read them. Hundreds of millions of dollars to fund irrigation canals, farming equipment, and even fertilizer to support poppy cultivation and heroin production in Afghanistan. And who controls Afghanistan these days?
The Taliban.
The Taliban. So we are funding the poppy cultivation, which is used to make heroin, which is what the Taliban sells to poison Americans and to support themselves. We are supporting the Taliban with taxpayer dollars.
And what about our own irrigation systems in the Southwest?
Well, yes,
in the Midwest.
Well, in the Midwest, yes, because Trump.
Midwest, and in Southern California, irrigation in the Midwest and in California.
Yeah, so yeah, you're right. We have so many projects here where we could be using that money instead, but no, we are helping the Taliban grow poppy so they can make heroin. And by the way, here's the White House press secretary, Carolyn Levitt. She's got a little list. She's going to cover some of these same things. This is in a sidewalk. She was kind of ambushed by a bunch of, I don't know whether she was ambushed or went outside, but she's in a driveway outside the White House, and there's a bunch of people there with cameras. And here she is talking to them about the same thing.
Waste and abuse that has run through USAID over the past several years. These are some of the insane priorities that organization has been spending money on. $1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia's workplaces, $70,000 for a production of a DEI musical in Ireland, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. I don't know about you, but as an American taxpayer, I don't want my dollars going towards this crap. And I know the American people don't either. And that's exactly what Elon Musk has been tasked by President Trump to do, to get the fraud, waste, and abuse out of our federal government.
By the way, do you ever recall Biden's press secretary, Kareem Jean-Pierre, or whatever her name was, using the word crap to fund this crap? That's the first time I think I've heard a White House press secretary use the word crap. And I think it's refreshing. What do you think?
Well, I think he got a lot of flack for, because I don't know how old she is, but she looks very young. She's this young, beautiful blonde, and people aren't giving her any credit, but she's cutting through the crap.
I think she's
getting right to the point.
Right to the point. I think she's 27. I think she's doing a great job. I think she's doing a far better job than Kareem Jean-Pierre, who I hope to never hear from again, by the way. All right. So that's that. So now let's go on. We're not done with stupid government spending. So this is a tweet from Elon Musk. The DOGE team discovered, among other things, that, remember we talked about how every check, regardless of which agency approves the payment, it's paid for by a Treasury check, and they have people there who are supposed to be reviewing these payments, these checks before they go out put in the mail. The DOGE team discovered, among other things, that payment approval, now these are payment approval officers. These are probably, GS-14 level people, which, they're making over $100,000 a year. That payment approval officers at the Treasury were instructed to always approve payments, even to known fraudulent or terrorist groups. They have literally never denied a payment in their entire career, not even once. Can you imagine you are a career
That's their
payment?
job to question.
Right. Can you imagine, you're looking at hundreds of checks. Well, when I say checks, you're not looking at the actual check. You're looking at the check request list or the checks to be printed. And you're
Yeah.
going down this list. You're looking at the who it's being paid to, the amount, who the authorizing agency is. And so in the course of a week, you're looking at thousands of checks getting ready to, of the printout of checks getting ready to run. And in your entire 20-year career with the Treasury, you've never stopped one single check, not once in 20 years.
And it's literally your job to question what these checks are for.
Right. And as we all know, there's been massive, I think there's been 30 billion worth of Medicaid, Medicare fraud, IRS fraud. So my question is, if you're not going to ever deny payment of a check, why do we need you? Why are you on the payroll? Think about that. If you've been instructed to never stop payment of a check, then why do we need you on the payroll?
Yeah.
So again, let me read this one more time. The DOGE team discovered, among other things, that payment approval officers at the US Treasury were instructed to always approve payments, even to known or fraudulent terrorist groups. They literally never denied a payment in their entire career, not even once. How stupid is that?
I think there's that question of if they're never going to do it, then why do we need them? But I think we do need them and they actually need to do
Yes.
their job.
I couldn't agree. We absolutely do need, I think every agent, every business, by the way, and I've run several businesses, and we always had what's called separation of powers. One group would request a check, and another group or somebody else, in some cases it was me, I would look at what was called the check run. It was this list of checks we intended to print and mail, that day or that week. And sometimes it was me. I'd go down and I'd say, what the hell is this check? Why are we sending this check for this amount to this person I've never heard of or this organization? And several times in the businesses I've run, which were a lot smaller than US Treasury, I've stopped checks and say, no, that, this is, we're not paying this, or the thing we got from this guy was defective. And, until we get our refund, we're not paying this until we get one that works. So, yeah. And if I do that in a relatively small, when I say relatively small, say a $20 million business, the US Treasury is 100,000 times bigger than that in terms of the checks they write every day. I can't believe there's not one bad check has ever gone. When I say bad, a check that shouldn't have gone out. Well, we know with 30 billion annually of bogus payments to people committing Medicare and Medicaid fraud, we know there's bogus checks going out. So clearly, I agree with you that the job should exist, but clearly these people weren't doing their job. All right, let's move on to more waste of taxpayer dollars. Are you familiar with the massive solar plant in the Mojave Desert that uses mirrors?
I feel like I vaguely heard something about this.
Well, there's a massive, back in 2014, they created this solar plant. Now, it doesn't use solar panels, it uses mirrors. It's called the Avanpas Solar Power Plant. And what it does, it has 350,000 mirrors in a circle. It's 5 miles wide, by the way, these 350,000 mirrors. And it's almost something out of James Bond. And all these mirrors catch the rays of the sun and they focus them upward. There's a big boiler up on top of a tower. And these mirrors aggregate the solar rays and they bounce them towards this one central point where this boiler is sitting on top of a tower. And again, this is massive. You can see it from an airplane. You look down, you can't miss it. It's 5 miles across and it's all mirrors. And by the way, it incinerates any bird that happens to fly through through that 5 mile circle is instantly incinerated. It's like something out of James Bond. A bird flies in, catches fire, and drops to the ground.
Oh my gosh.
They've estimated that 6,000 birds a year.
I'm surprised that PETA is not all over this.
Yeah, well, I'm surprised too. But literally, if you're a bird and because the temperature in the middle of this thing gets up to like 600 degrees, and it's all these mirrors are concentrating the sun rays at this one spot. So if you're a bird and you fly too close to this central point, it literally incinerates you in midair. Well, anyway, Pacific Gas and Electric, which supplies power to California, was buying the electricity being generated by this solar plant, again, it's 350,000 mirrors. Well, they kept raising their rates and raising their rates, and PSE&G finally said, by the way, your power is getting too expensive. We can get it cheaper elsewhere. And so and they had the right to terminate their contract with the company that ran it called NRG Energy. So they're terminating their contracts with the plant. And that's going to wind up with the closing of and the bankruptcy of that organization. Well, guess what? The U.S. government is the guarantor on a $1.5 billion loan that was used to build the plant, plus a $600,000 grant from the U.S. Treasury. So it's over $2 billion. So when NRG shuts this place down and declares bankruptcy, obviously they're going to default on all these bank loans. And who's the guarantor? Who's the guarantor in the bank loans? U.S. government. So those bank loans are never going to get paid by the NRG, who's the operator of the plant, because the plants were incorporated as a separate legal entity. So when this Ivanpah solar plant shuts down and goes out of business, the U.S. government is going to be stuck paying off the loan for $1.5 billion, plus the $600,000 that it was 1.6 loan guarantee, and it was a $535 million grant from the Treasury Department. So there's $2.1 billion of taxpayer money down the drain. So that's more wasted. If my view, you remember Solyndra many years ago under Obama, the Solyndra plant? They were making solar panels, and which we all get from China right now. Anyway, they had a business plan. They went to every venture capital group, every bank in the country, and they all turned them down, saying, we don't think you have a viable business plan. Obama stepped in and directed, I forget which agency it was, to guarantee a loan for them. And of course, once the federal government guarantees a loan, the banks say, hey, we don't care if your business plan makes sense or not, because your loan's guaranteed. Well, 9 months after after Obama guaranteed the Solyndra loan, Solyndra went out of business. So it's the same thing. If a business enterprise can't convince banks to loan them money, and these banks and venture capital funds, I mean, you talk about people like Chase Bank. They hire the best and the brightest out of these business schools. If the people that are hiring the best and the brightest in the world of finance don't think you have a viable business plan, what makes the U.S. government smarter than them in terms of, yes, this is a loan we think we should make? Clearly, they've proven over and over and over they are not smarter than private lending institutions. So my view is, if a bank won't lend you the money, then the government shouldn't guarantee the loan, because the U.S. government is not smarter than the bank. So that's another one down the drain. All right. You want to move on to, this gets back to diversity, equity, and inclusion and gender identities. By the way, it's nice that we're back to only 2 genders. Remember, we at one time there was like 4 to LGBTQ. They kept tacking on letters to how many different genders there were. So this is a little satire. We've all seen the script spelling bee, right? Mm-hmm. Where they give the student a word, and in this clip, it's like young boy, looks like he's about 12 years old, and he's in a spelling bee. He's up on stage, and once they give you a word, you can ask for a definition, and you can ask for the origin. Is it Latin? Is it French? What's the origin of the word? So here's the word he's been asked to spell. I think this is great. Here we go.
Well, woman, can I have the country of origin, please?
I don't, probably England or Germany or something. Woman.
Can I have the definition, please?
Why don't you ask Judge 1?
And Judge 1 is a black woman. And here we go. Okay, here's her answer to the question, definition of a woman.
That question.
Can I have the definition of woman, please?
No.
Why not? I'm allowed to ask for definitions, right?
The thing is, a woman is a woman is
So what she's trying to say is that each person gets to define for themselves what a woman is.
So can you define it?
No.
Isn't that great? Wouldn't you like to see that happen in real life? You still there?
I mean, why couldn't they just say, define it by the chromosomes of, XX or XY?
Right. Yeah, but obviously they wouldn't do that. But anyway, so that was I just thought that was a great. Yeah, it's satire, but yeah, at the core of any good satire is an element of truth, and I think there was so much element of truth in that. All right, let's talk about the deal that made my week. So you know that Senator Marco Rubio of Florida has been appointed as our Secretary of State, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he went down and he had a meeting with the president of El Salvador, which a lot of illegal aliens are coming here from El Salvador. Anyway, he reached an agreement with the president of El Salvador that not only will they take back their own illegal aliens, but that the president of El Salvador, they have a prison complex where they can house up to 40,000 prisoners. And the president of El Salvador said, not only will we take back our own immigrants that have illegally migrated to your country, and let me read this, the quote from the article. Salvadorian President Nayib Bukele represents the most unprecedented, extraordinary migratory agreement anywhere in the world. We can send them, and he will put them in his jails, the Secretary of State said, of immigrants to be deported. And he's also offered the same for dangerous criminals currently in custody and serving their sentences in the United States, even though they may be U.S. citizens or legal residents. Bukele, 43, indicated he will charge the U.S. a relatively low fee if he decides to use his nation's notorious 40,000 person capacity a year. And let's talk about that. We've talked about $80,000 a year. Well, that's kind of a low end. Do you know that in some states, their annual cost to house a prisoner is in excess of $250,000 a year, like in California, where all the guards have gold-plated pensions and where they give taxpayer-funded sex chain operations and liver transplants to their prisoners. In some states, it can cost over $200,000 a year to have a prisoner, kept. So he's saying, "Hey, we will house anybody you want to send us," and he's willing to do it for less than $20,000 per year per pension per prisoner, by the way, which is a huge savings. But by the way, I guarantee you, they're not going to be getting sex chain operations. Their guards don't get gold-plated pensions. Their guards are probably making, instead of, I think a prison guard in California makes upwards of $40 an hour. I think a guard in an El Salvadoran prison probably makes $6 an hour. Doesn't have a pension.
I mean,
Doesn't have
$40 an hour is not a bad salary.
Not a bad salary. And so they're not going to go. And by the way, most of our federal prisons have central air conditioning, colored cable TV. You're not going to find all that stuff in those LSAT. But I think it's just great that he's willing to take up to 40,000 prisoners. So, like, if we have an illegal alien that's, we've had some of these that they've been convicted of murder, rape, assault. I think send them all to El Salvador prison. I don't think we should take a guy that, like this one illegal sent this person on fire in the subway. Remember that from a couple of weeks ago? Illegal alien set this woman on fire and killed her. Now, I don't think we should just deport him and let him go free. I think that person needs to spend the rest of his life in prison, but not in a U.S. prison. Let him spend the rest of his life in an El Salvadorian prison. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't that be just incredible to send all of our hardcore illegal immigrant prisoners to or criminals to an El Salvadorian prison at a fraction of the cost it would cost to keep them here?
Absolutely.
So, all right. How much time we got?
We're running out of time. We only have a couple minutes left.
All right, we're going to jump right to our taxpayer relief shot. And this one comes to us from Philadelphia. Here we go. If I can find it.
Confrontation with an intruder turned deadly in Southwest Philadelphia.
Police say the homeowner fired the fatal shot at the stranger at the front door. Action News reporter Catherine Scott is live at police headquarters with what we know so far. Good morning.
Good morning. And after the shooting, the homeowners remained on the scene. They were cooperating with authorities, and police say they took them here to police headquarters for further interview. You could see police examining the door of this home in Southwest Philadelphia, collecting evidence after a homeowner told police he fatally shot a 64-year-old man who was trying to break into his house. It happened shortly before 11 last night on Cobbs Creek Parkway near Cedarhurst.
The homeowners that were in the house at the time, they saw on their Ring camera that somebody was tampering with the front door.
Only the husband and wife were home, both also in their 60s. Police say the husband confronted the man who then broke in through the front door. Investigators found fresh damage to the wooden doors and a Ring camera pulled from the wall.
After breaking into the front door of the property, being confronted by the homeowner, that's when the homeowner fired one shot, striking the 64-year-old who had just broken into the house, and he collapsed right inside of the enclosed front porch. That's where police found him.
All right. So I know we're running out of time anyway. So since we're running out of time real quick, thanks for listening to the situation with Jerzee Joe. You can, if you want to go to the website, it's jerzee-joe.com. Just remember to spell Jerzee, Jerzee. If you want to send me an email with a comment, a question, or suggested topic, just do it by sending it to joe@jerzeejoe.com. Just remember to spell Jersey, J-E-R, with R as in Robert, Z as in zebra, E-E. So joe@jerzeejoe.com, and I'll get your email and I'll respond. Producer Susan, anything else before we run out of time?
See, we had Punxsutawney Phil last weekend. We've got the Super Bowl coming up this weekend.
All right, and I know you're not an Eagles fan, but I gotta.
But I am a Saquon fan.
You're a Saquon fan. All right. Talk to you next week. You take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.